Welcome to Goddess State, where we are creating divine realities and building global brands by activating our identities and awakening consciousness. Today, we have an exciting guest with us, Michelle, who is, oh my goodness, she does so many different things. She does shamanic work, she does activations across the board with chakras, she does clearings. Oh my gosh, we're gonna have you talk about what you do, Michelle, and if you want to introduce yourself.
Sure. Okay, yeah. So, yeah, multidimensional consciousness. How do we put that in a marketing nutshell, right?
Exactly.
That's been a big challenge for my work and my love and my soul. Well, if you guys are familiar with Ram Dass, he's a very popular spiritual teacher, and he's one of my spiritual teachers, and I got to meet him in person in this lifetime, and his initiation and spark of my consciousness made me really recognize that I wanted to teach consciousness. And the way that that looks in my life is actually like sound healing transmission and empowering women and men to be more wild and primal and activated in their truth and their raw abilities to stand in their power in the face of a society that often persecutes the wild, dark, natural law congruence with nature and its wildness and its primal and the purity of its primal frequency, which is like our inherent sexuality and our ability to like go out in the woods and drum and pray and sing, and all of those in our culture with the Christian Victorian Puritan consciousness has been shamed, really. And so it's like this reclamation of that. And you don't know how many clients I have who have religious trauma or parents who have tried to make them small in some way, or are part of workplaces that like want to keep you in a box, or like just sit down in this chair and don't be a real wild animal like you are. And I feel like I can't fit any of those molds, as you were just saying. Like, what do you do?
Exactly.
Who
What
are
do I
you?
call you?
And
Exactly.
then, but I like to make a joke that says I'm an energy healer disguised as a coach who works to really help people reclaim and repattern past life blockages, karmic predicament, and put you on your spiritual path in a way. And the voice is a tool that I use to move energy and to help
Mm,
empower somebody because it's the fingerprint to your own soul. And there's like so many dimensions of that soul signature and that sound that we can use for healing other
mm-hmm.
people and also healing ourselves. So that's a little bit of the more shamanic parts of my
Yeah.
story and my world. Yeah.
Thank you for introducing yourself in such a multifaceted way. And I love that this episode is going to be about voice of the soul because a few things come to mind when I think about what that even means. And like you just said, our voice holds the codes to heal ourselves. And that's why people want to silence us or suppress us or repress us. And we live in a world where it's so difficult to just speak our truth. But when you understand that your own voice holds the medicine to heal yourself, whether that be to speak your truth or to speak blessings on yourself, I think your life will
That's
completely
true.
change. And so I would love to know from you if someone has a sort of blocked throat chakra or they're walking around being like, well, I don't even know the voice of my soul. How would I even begin to figure that out? Where would you guide them to doing so?
Yeah, well, I mean, like, not to be a self-promo nerdy person, but the first thing that popped in was I have a toning meditation on Insight Timer. It's like very simple. It's a vocal toning meditation, and we tone through the chakras, right? Very easily. And it's like toning is, for those of you who might not know, it's like a humming or just making a sound. And so there are systems, there are graphics, like infographics that you'll see that's like the root is A, C, and the sacral is B, and it like actually goes up like the Western scale, which I don't personally buy into or believe in. When I started experimenting with this myself, it felt like my root chakra, and this is a thing that's nuanced for people who are absolute beginners. They might not even understand how to bring their consciousness into the root chakra, right? So that could be ephemeral to somebody. Like, what does that mean? And so you have to know where the root chakra is. So think of like your perineum, the lower part of your body, your legs, even going down into the earth. and then rocking into that, feeling that somatically, like moving your body, kind of maybe stomping your feet into the ground, and taking a scan in your mind of like what sensation is there, what feeling is there. And then some people will feel like really heavy or dense, some people might feel achy. And then it says like, okay, well, if that place of your body wanted to sing or make a sound, what would it say? And so some people's sound is going to be like, ah, like I'm exhausted, or, ooh, I really need to ground more and I didn't understand that I needed that, or like, ah, I need to get energy out of my legs, you
Mm.
know? And so each person will make a vibration in that space that's
Mm.
unique to them. Same with the sacral. Now, the chakras themselves carry imprints of information from past lives, our baggage, our personal baggage, things that we are attracted to, and things that we are repulsed from, our aversions and our attractions. In the yoga, they're called the samskaras. And I feel like my coaching work, the shamanic, when I'm singing into people, it pops those. So like you have an aversion to this or you have these complexes, these neuroses, if you will, as a human person, and they're stored in these little portals of energy as doorways. And when we tone and when we move the energy in a conscious way where we're mirroring our mind and our intention with the vibration that's there, those things tend to swirl and spiral and move. And then they can either disintegrate or integrate into the person. So they can be completely removed and gone, or they will integrate into you and you'll have a different relationship to it. And then what I feel is that your soul, your psyche itself, the absolute consciousness, when I'm talking about your soul, like I believe that your higher dimensional self, only pieces of that exist in your current body. But the more
Mm.
room that you make by popping these samskaras, the more frequency you can download into your walk in this lifetime. And that's the journey of ascension, as Jesus and like that model for this, what can humans do to reach enlightenment? It's like you release your baggage and you make more room for the material of your eternal self to actually be
Mm.
downloaded into your body.
Wow. Oh my goodness. So many downloads from what you just said. One, thank you for saying to label the different noises that your chakras would make, because I think that that just gives an instant label to the energy in your body and what's going on. Like, I'm sure that for people who have a blocked heart, and the heart is the bridge between the lower realms and the
Huge.
higher realms, if someone has a blocked heart, they could have a lot of anger that comes to them, or they could have no sound at all. And so, what would you share for someone who has no sound if they're like, ugh, or if it's like blocked and they're like, I don't know, actually, nothing's coming out. What do I
No,
do?
yeah. So I have a dear friend of mine I love him so much, and he's very mental. So the way he hearts is through his thoughts. And so this is common also, by the way, when I look at people energetically. There are places where overactive, this might be more of a catch-all term that people will identify with. I think back in the day when chakras got popular, people remembered like, oh, I'm overactive in this chakra or I'm underactive in this chakra. And there was like a little quiz you could take online to like gauge it. I
Mm-hmm.
remember this from like the early 2000s. So when I see someone, right, and they come up in front of me on the Zoom, I can sense like, oh, your sacral chakra is where you're primarily dominant. You're kind of resting in that space, which means there's energy, but it's not flooding into the heart, right? So you want to allow, it's really like weaving a bridge and allowing your energy to kind of like even as I'm doing it on my body right now, I'm kind
Mm.
of combing the energy upward. And so it's not that it's funny because this is a total misnomer. Like, I'm gonna bust that myth just to be cheesy. Everybody says like I want to work on my heart, or it's like you can work on one individual thing, and I don't see it that way energetically at all. Everything is connected, and it has its own specific geometry that you're working with. So each person who like comes to my table, let's say as a curandero, as a healer, right? You come to my table and I'm like, okay, this is the configuration of your geometry that's currently active. You're a little over here, you're a little over there, etc. And as I sing or hold space for your frequency, I bring you more into congruence to allow that system to come to a geometry that really would make more sense for your personal blueprint, your personal template. So like everything seems to be systems running. And the thing about that is it's usually beliefs. Like beliefs are swaying you to rest more in that sacral chakra than in your heart. It could be fear, fear of intimacy, avoidance that makes like I'm more comfortable connecting from my sacral and experiencing intimacy on a sexual, physical level. But if I open my heart to you, you'll be able to fully penetrate me and I'm not going to be safe. And so the cue to that, if I was working with someone, would be like, let's ground you more in the root chakra so that you feel an inherent sense of safety. Let's allow some of the disintegration of that sacral chakra so you're not relying it. And kind of what would it feel like to do a breathing practice to move some energy into the belly? How's the connection between the sacral and the heart? Is there energy there? Is there more of that anger, constriction? Are we more in the shadow? And then can we imagine that that energy floods up into the heart and we can relax into the heart? Or this is a very common pattern. Is there a shield on the heart? That is super. I've seen that like countless times where people have like a guard, like straight up.
I can
Then we
imagine.
work with the guard. What does the guard represent? Is it a parent? Is it somebody from a past life? Is it some kind of situation? And then how do we let that go and then open it? And then we can start working with that energy frequency once we've kind of gotten the blockages of it. Then we want to kind of strengthen it like a muscle, going to the gym, breathing
Yeah.
in, and then I'd give them a homework practice of like aligning those from lower to lower to upper and feel what that feels like. Go ahead.
Have
Yeah.
you ever heard of this practice where you take the spinal fluid from the base of the spine and you kind of imagine it rising to the top of your head, kind
I
of where your pineal
have.
gland is? Can
Yes,
you share
yes.
about that experience and what that does? Does it awaken
Well,
the pineal gland?
I have to be honest, and I haven't had a Kundalini. I haven't had I mean, I'm so freaking energetic. I don't know if I need to have one of those like really strong where the spinal column there's a pulse of the cerebral spinal fluid that goes when you have a Kundalini awakening that goes from the base of your spine. They call it like a coiled serpent at the very base of
Mm-hmm.
the back of the sacral, and it lights up and it activates density and opens and is supposed to go through the crown chakra. That column of light in Sanskrit is called the Shushumna Nadi, and there's light energy that goes up and down that I've been personally just to like tell on myself. I've been taking psychedelics since I was like 14 years old. So I like took acid like very young and everything like that. So I feel like I've been open maybe from because of past life initiations and such, and maybe because of like strong psychedelic use for so much of my life that I've never been able to like trace that. And I also don't have enough of a disciplined, focused practice. I actually want to take a Vipassana very soon. Vipassana is the 10-day meditation of silence for people who don't know, where you just sit for 10 days, because that would be something to focus on. I mean, even though it's not traditional Vipassana practice because you're supposed to focus on the breath out of your nose, but like if I'm sitting in stillness for 10 days, like, yeah, trace the breath up the spine. Thank you. You just gave me something to think about because you really need to be able to focus on subtlety, and that skill, I can even see where when I go into medicine journeys, like if I'm doing plant medicine, ayahuasca, like the medicine itself, the plants themselves will tell me, like, your focus ain't shit, girl. Like, they make fun of me because that's our relationship.
Yeah. Well, I feel like
But
the world is a mirror. So, like, I'm very strict on myself. I'm very strict with, like, the world.
ah,
So, I usually receive very strict feedback, but it's how it will
same.
activate me and awaken me. So, like,
Yeah.
I can open the Bible and, like, receive the most grueling advice, but that's what will land for me. I'm like, damn, okay, I didn't need it like that, but that's how I am. So,
Word.
I
Okay,
feel
so you
like
get
the,
it.
yeah, so the universe, if the universe is comical with you, it's probably because you're just a comical person and that's how you are with it. And so
It's so
it's kind of a
true.
mirror like that. I love what you're saying about all of this being the activator for the voice, right? And the voice of the
Mm-hmm.
soul. It gets trapped within us. And I think that the whole thing that we're trying to say here is that this is a physical experience for a reason. We are in these bodies for a reason, but our voice comes from the heavens. Our voice has, again,
Mm.
codes to heal us. Our voice is our soul. And so, another thing that you were talking about was this practice of light language, which I actually did this when
Yeah.
I was younger. I actually grew up as like the only white girl in my entire school, and so I was surrounded by so many people who spoke different languages, and I was so jealous. I was like 6 7 years old, and I was like, why are they're able to just speak like all these beautiful languages, and I didn't have anything. I only had English. And so I would go to class and I'd be like, well, I speak a language at my house too, and I would do light language, and I would be like, "Parasia poto asia kontia abala aso," and I would just talk, and people would look at me like, what language is that? And
That's beautiful.
I remember my mom came to a parent teacher night, and people were asking my mom, being like, what language is she speaking? What language is she speaking? And then she kind of broke the magic and was like, we don't speak a different language at home. And I was like, you don't understand. This is a real language for me. This is real. And so the kids understood that it was coming from the heavens, but we didn't label it anything like, whatever the labels are for languages. But what do you say to someone who wants to learn like language, or who doesn't even know what it is? How would you introduce that to someone as to how that could activate a person's soul awakening?
I would say that light language is harmonic and vibrational. There are mysteries that I don't even understand that I learned through doing plant medicine ceremonies where energy healing, vibration, and the meeting of what I was just talking about, which is somebody's astral subtle body with the Icaros or the shaman's song. And light language functions in a very similar fashion, where there are syllabic tones, and so does mantra, by the way. Sanskrit mantras, it's like magic words. Like there's vibrational, like when just in vowel sounds, ra, ma, shi, va. Like these are when the rishis went into a trance and they were like, the sound of the universe is om, right? It's just any kind of a vibrational syllable that you are speaking with intention, right? And you're going right. It's
Mm,
this is
yeah.
this is what I meant with the primal natural way of us,
Yes.
right? There's a primal natural way. Light language is our ability to shut our brains off and to allow our vibrational syllabic tone combination to be spoken through us into possibly another being or for our own, when we sing, when we speak, it's like it lights up both hemispheres of the brain. And when we're talking about pituitary pineal gland, where there's a way that our mental, everybody knows this, you guys have all experienced this. We have the one level of the mind, which is the monkey mind, the surface mind. It's the narrator of like our experience. Does my hair look okay? That kind of thing, the self-conscious part of us. Then there's another mind, and that other mind is quieter and more perceptive and kind of eternal and doesn't really judge things, and it's just witnessing. And that mind, when we are vibrating, I'm actually going to akin light language a lot to mantra in my teachings right now, because mantra means literally mind, I think train or mind. It's like well, what is it? It's I don't actually.
The
It's funny
focus
because I
train.
just
The focus train.
it's like right. But it's like, is it mind vehicle or something like that? Like a vehicle, like, and it's like a meaning a train, like a
That's
train for your
beautiful.
mind. Yeah, and so if you're speaking these syllables, they take you somewhere on that focus. Okay, so if we're doing light language, what will get in your way is thinking about what you're going to say. It's not, and it's similar to like when you're doing a freestyle, like if you're rapping, it's harder to do with words, but if you think about it or if you get in your head too much, it takes you out of the moment. And so if you're allowing yourself to channel, and the other key is you have to let go of self-consciousness, because if you're afraid of being silly, and that's a big gift. I did musical theater when I was younger, so I was like 6 years old, and they painted me green and made me like Evil Eye Fleagle and Little Abner, and they told me your job is to whammy people, and I was like, yes to that, right? Like, and I think like little things like that changed my life compared to clients that I have that are like really afraid of making mistakes. Like maybe they were classically trained in an art form, which is, you would think,
Mm,
like awesome, but like their ability to freestyle or be creative without rules is very challenged because of the way that they were trained. So depending on somebody's upbringing, it really matters how free they are in their embodiment. And this light language and this wildness that I just kind of inherently came in with and got to be more and more. And then as I developed shamanic gifts, it was just like, oh yeah, all of this in one place. Okay, great, you know. And then we're like, oh, and like there's a different tonality and texture with our own universal soul song. And that's another thing that we can go into, which is like, what is someone's soul song, and what are the repeated sounds that you make that are coming from the voice of your soul, which is like your own unique fingerprint that is just yours, that you, when you work with it, when you start to work with it, you imprint it into others, you imprint it into spaces around you, and it's really your art. It's really beautiful.
Thank you for sharing that. I love this idea of a soul song because as I am honing my craft as a singer, songwriter, rapper,
Mm.
the mix of all of these,
Oh,
is it is important to have this signature style. And I find that it's not even that you try to sound a certain way, but you know when Cardi B is about to come on a track. Like she is going to sound the same as she did 20 songs ago. And that's because you've honed like the voice of your soul. You've honed how you feel best expressing yourself. Now, it's not to say that you can't experiment with other genres, but there's just a way that your soul likes to express. And so when it comes to light language, for someone who, doesn't sing or doesn't really talk very much or doesn't have any abilities to speak on the daily, how would you use light language or tell them to start using it? Do they just speak gibberish? Do they say ba la za za ba ba ba? Like what's the first step for them to
yeah.
activate that throat chakra?
I was just in a class and they did that. They did that as an exercise where they were like speak gibberish, and some people could do it, some people couldn't. I would rather give advice around the body, because I think if we use the body as an instrument, we have more range. And so even if, like, I don't know if you guys can see me right now, but I'm starting to sway and tap on my chest. And like it's a pulse, or we're a drum, right? So then we want to
Mm,
be like, boom, ta, om, ta. Om tika taya tia ti. You just start to like make your own like
right.
ha ya ha ya.
Right.
On the katea, he, he. And then try a different part of your body. Maybe then you go into the head. What does the head want to say? Oh, ti, ti, ta, ka, to, yo, ta, ta, ti, ya, ta, ta, ta. And like, when I'm touching my chest, right? I'm thumping my hands. My hands are flat. When I touched my head, I went little spider fingers and did little taps and
Yes.
stuff like that. And my voice mirrored what my body was doing.
Yes.
So it's a
Oh,
really amazing gateway to weave the somatic principles and then singing
yes.
into the energy and like, see, again, all connected. We're not just one thing. And I think that's difference between there's so many coaches who like are like, feel your throat chakra. Your throat chakra is the most blocked chakra. And I'm like, we are a whole system. We're a whole
Yeah.
system. Yeah. And so if you
Yeah.
have a block somewhere, you have a block everywhere. And if you want to play, you can play and make sounds and explore and experiment. And that's how you can open for light language.
And do you believe that anyone can just get into that somatic practice of just moving their body? Because it's our natural state, right? To just
Depending
move.
on depending on the trauma or the karma that the person has, because there are some people I fully believe, probably not people listening to this, by the way. If you're listening to this, then yes, you could do that. But
Yeah.
there are people, yeah, word, right? But there are people who I meet who are beautiful people who are like diplomats, or they are in government or whatever, and their lives are just different than mine or yours. You know what I mean? Like they don't need to practice light language. Do you know what I mean? Because they're like their whole role and responsibility in this earth is different, and there's nothing wrong with them. They're like not losing anything. But if you are somebody who feels like channeling is a part of your dharma and you want to grow in your intuitive psychic gifts, then yes, then move your body 100%.
And why would that be important for someone? Because you just said that like politicians and people, in those corporate careers might not be called to this because it's not their healing modality. Maybe they create great graphics, or maybe they, speak on panels in a very sophisticated way, let's just say. But what about the healers that are called to this? What will light language or somatic primal movement do to activate their healing gifts? How is this actually going to help them?
Let me actually pivot for a moment and be like, politicians totally need to do this. We would be
Okay.
very but better. But I'm just saying that I want to respect that there are some people who like don't have to do these kind of healing practices and modalities because they may run, or they might swim, they might have like more normal stuff, and they don't have to do light language. But
Okay.
I could say that everybody in the current administration would benefit deeply from shamanic work. And then to circle back to the question of like, how would this benefit healers? Um, our capacity to hold and to lead and to teach is based on our internal capacity. So if we want to create more impact in the world, we need to widen our vessels in an energetic way, and also work with our own content, our own stuff, our own I don't know, mishigash is a word, but that's what's coming to me. In order to get that out, so that we are clear vessels, because the more the I very much believe there's a principle called hollow bone. In order to be a really clear channeler, we have to be a hollow bone. And working with the breath and working with movement and working with sound is a way that we can clear that mental chatter of our own mind so that we can receive more downloads,
Mm,
so that we know what our mission is. And this is just the 101 of why we need a spiritual practice. And then the other thing is, because of the world and technology that we have, and
mm.
because we really are primal animal beings, we need way more spiritual practice than we actually believe that we do. Yeah.
I love this so much. There's this theme in this episode of you talking about clearing out the vessel to make sure that we are divine channels to receive the proper or clear guidance from the heavens or the other side or wherever we're really channeling from to help
Yeah.
humanity elevate and expand. And so I wonder, how much of you should you keep and how much should be clear? How can someone discern that?
I think that you are gonna have enough of yourself no matter what.
Okay.
I don't think in our human experience there's enough of like, and the other part, by the way, that we want to name is like, okay, the soul incarnates with two intentions. One intention is to individuate from God, and that's why we have the ego, and we want to create something of like, this is my purpose and my passion, and this is the me. And then the other part is to return to the divine source of whatever you want to call that, if you want to call that God or not. And usually that's a path of surrender and humility and, service and all of these things. And that's like, so we have like the spiritual path, and we have the worldly path, and we're in the world, and the world is endless. And if you're living a spiritual life, ideally you want to one of my teachers, Gary Zukov, says the authentic power is when the personality is in service to the soul. So we want to have the order right. And I even think they say this in the Bhagavad Gita: as long as the soul is a primary focus, and then the ego serves that, then we're in congruence, and then we're leading a spirit-filled life. So it's not so much about removing, it's just the order of operations of what your hierarchy is. And a lot of people in our culture of spirituality, I would say, have it reversed, but it looks good and they're doing a good job because the masses actually don't have the attunement, which is
Yes.
something I've just really seen in the last few years. Moving to Austin, Texas was like a real, like, I was in Boulder and I was like, huh, this is not what I thought that the conscious hippie scene was. That's interesting. There's different shadow elements here. And same with our festival scene. And then I moved to Austin and I was like, oh, this is also interesting. It's like we're not at the place. I think some of us are yogis, and some of us are yogis from like past lives. And when you're a yogi, you just have a different texture of how you operate in the world versus people who are worldly, who are in the trend of spirituality or see the monetization of spirituality. And That's different. So those people, I would say, probably need to clear a little bit more out. And then other people who are yogis who are finding themselves navigating, especially what's happening now in the last year or so, with there's so much contentiousness in the collective. It's a very hard space to be in, that you have to navigate both how to have really strong boundaries and still stay open to love.
Yeah, I love all of this so much. How can someone differentiate the voice of their ego versus the voice of their soul?
Voice of the ego is usually afraid of something or
Mm.
protecting you from something. And voice of the soul, I want to like curse, don't give a fuck. Like voice of the soul, voice of the soul, don't give a fuck. Voice of the soul is neutral and spacious. There's like no defense. There's no need to prove. You can even, I can feel like I'm transmitting it right now as I'm like backing up. There's a big thing that I say in my one-on-one work, or when I hold classes for people. People think the same concept about like I have to fix my throat chakra. People think or come to me maybe on a discovery call and they'll be like, I need to sing, I need to do this. And I'm like, no, you don't need to do those things. Those are forward things. It's a leaning back into your power. Power is how much you rest in yourself. This is something in my maturity over the last 10 years that I've really, and my womanhood, I would say in a very sincere way, have really deepened into, is that when I see the grasping for power, that's the ego. Yes. There's a fear that I won't have something. I need to grab it. I'm trying to get something that I am not already. But with the resting in the eternal self, you already are this thing that you're trying to become. You are removing these obstacles from it. It's that old Marianne Williamson quote where she says, your task is not to seek for love, but to remove every barrier that you've placed in its way, because the
Yeah.
love is absolute. The love is the eternal power that is in the sun rising every day, is in us. And we sync ourselves to that. That is the voice of your soul. Your voice of your soul is your dharma. It's intrinsic to you. The programming and packaging is the ego.
What would you say for someone who maybe took actions thinking that it was their soul guiding them, and then they quickly realized that, oh my God, this is not at all what I wanted. Now the mirror of my reality is showing me something that I don't want. And I guess sometimes it just means that you walk the path to realize what's not for you, and you get clearer within your soul's desires by doing things that maybe don't serve you. Would you say that your soul will lead you down paths to show you what paths are not meant for you because you need that
Yes,
embodiment?
yes. Real talk, real talk. Our guides, I get mad at them because I'm sassy. If you haven't figured it out by now. And I will be like, bro, you just told me to do this thing, and then you put that person in thing, and then that went crazy. But like I was just at Parangi recently and I saw my friend Michael and I haven't seen him for a minute. And I was like, bro, all this messed up stuff happened to me this year and it only made me more beautiful. And like,
Mm.
real talk, that's the spiritual journey. That's why it's not an easy sell. And I tell people, because of the way that I keep it real, like, priestess path ain't no like bed of roses. Like, it ain't the girls dancing on lingerie, sprinkling rose petals on each other on Instagram. That's not what it looks like. Like, that's not, it's like, that is a cover of how that's not even what divine feminine looks like, in my humble opinion. I mean, like, I
What does it look
feel,
like?
for me, like, it's, there's great pain and ecstasy simultaneously. You hold both. You don't know, and I'm sure you resonate with this. There are so many women who come to my doorstep who are like, keepers of like death portals and ritual, like think of birth. Think of birth. Birth is messy and fierce, right?
Yeah.
And so like we're like, hey, me, like that's a very patriarchal version of femininity that has been appropriate and pretty.
Mm-hmm.
And And I'm all about, one of my girlfriends is an exotic dancer, a stripper, and she's got mad moves. I'm all about like fierce moves and put the pole in the leg and the twirl around. That's awesome. But being also the human grit of what we really are, and allow that to be penetrated by a real man. And like then you open in ecstasy and devotion and surrender. Those
Yeah.
are the doorways. Yeah.
What was coming to my mind of like what it is to walk the priestess path or even just be a woman on earth was literally just so much fire. It felt like a circular, flame on the ground with the woman in the middle in flames, but also with her palms up holding flames and just being fully on fire. Just in
Yeah.
terms of like what she offers, which is all this passion and ecstasy and fire, right, from
Yeah,
her
man.
soul, but then also being under fire and just being in the fire. So much fire. I just imagine that that's what a woman is. But again, she's also everything. She's earth, she's water, she's air, she's spirit.
Exactly.
Yeah, she's
Exactly.
everything.
Multi-dimensional. Yeah, that's the thing about the one note. Like, this is what a priestess looks like. It's like sometimes it looks like you crying to God, wailing on the ground with your hands,
Yeah,
burying sons from war. This is
yeah.
also what like divine mother is and looks like and serves, and I think we need to really honor that. And if we walked in this world with the dignity of woman, which we don't have right now, we'd be in a much different place as a whole. We mean the whole world, I feel, if we honored the divine feminine and the earth as a representation of her, our entire relationship with the world would be changed.
I completely agree. For the woman or men or whoever listening to this who feels like they they are so suppressed, repressed, and they don't know how to clear their thinking. Because we were talking earlier about clearing the vessel to receive divine guidance. Would you just tell them to follow their clearest, highest excitement? Just take one step in front of you that feels good. Would it be to follow the joy within you? Because one of the biggest problems in our reality is that we live in a society of masking. And because of this masking, there's a lot of mental health issues, there's a lot of physical health issues, because everything gets absorbed by the body, and the body just holds on to everything that we are not expressing. This is why expression is such a high form of health, mental health, spiritual health, physical health. So, what would you tell them in terms of like what action to take, or if they feel that, oh my God, if I don't do something in the next month, I feel like I'm going to get sick, or something
Mm.
about to blow, or I'm about to burst? Like, what would you tell these people who are holding the voice of their soul inside, buried so deep they don't even know what moves to make to get her out?
Yeah, there's a million things that you could do, but I want to focus more on you because I felt you come alive in that moment, what you were saying. And there's a passion and an aliveness and a ferocity in that expression that you just gave that I hadn't felt this entire
Ooh.
conversation. And
Yeah.
so that's the, go ahead. Did you want to say
Yeah,
something?
no, I could definitely share why. It comes from an activation of watching
Sure.
my mother pass away from cancer. This has been my theme my whole life, and I think that this is why stepping into such a leadership role with creating Goddess State is so important to me, but specifically to help other women because women suppress. And I'll share a very deep memory why this has been so activated for me on this call of like, expressing the voice of the soul. I remember once where, I was 10 years old. It was 2 years before my mother passed away from breast cancer. And she was with me, sleeping on the bed beside me. And I said, "Can you sing to me?" I was about 10 years old. And I said, "Can you sing the bedtime song? I love it when you sing." And she was with a partner she didn't feel safe around. And so he was walking the halls outside of my room. And she's like, "Not tonight, baby girl. I'm not going to sing tonight." And I knew intuitively that she was suppressing herself because of him, because she didn't feel safe sharing her voice around him. And I always remember that soul memory of being like, wow, like she's suppressing herself because of another human. but look, it's impacting me. I just want a bedtime song. Like, I'm your daughter. Like, but also I thought, wow, like, look at her. And she died of breast cancer. She died of so much energy inside of her body, just creating illnesses, creating just full dis-ease in the body. And so the first tattoo I ever got was, "You are my inspiration," for my mother, because she's the reason why I do what I do. And I never want women to die of internal dis-ease because of suppression, which is why this episode matters so much to me. Voice
It's
of the soul that
beautiful.
should be
Yeah.
expressed. Yeah.
To answer your question, which you were asking, like a how for people when
Yeah.
they you used a terminology that's very common, which is like follow your highest joy.
Yeah.
I would say follow your ferocity that you just expressed. What freaking lights you up and what are you a stand for? What hill would you die on? Because I'm a
Mm.
warrior. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like when you have that same initiation by life, by your karma, by your destiny, you
Mm.
that's the thing to go into. And I think the masking that you're talking about happens because like my mother is a repressor, right? She had so much. I understand completely why, because I come from immigrants, Armenian immigrants, and so deep like we just got here to the country like on the street, from third generation. And so there's all kinds of different and Armenian had genocide, right? We were like literally attacked and such. And then on the other side is Jewish and there's genocide there too. So there's some heavy karma on that, but it's also really beautiful ancient bloodlines and codes and all these things. But people deal with those things in different ways. I, like you, am dealing with this head on in this light worker fashion of like, I'm a warrior of the light. I see the karmic assignment. I'm going to chew into it and I'm going to transmute it and make conscious media and through love. And even when it's hard, this is my devotion to my cause. Other people, they maybe like our parents' generation, developed negative habits, addiction, suppression, abuse, where they would have repercussions, as what you're saying, where it would consume them, those traumas and
Exactly.
those negative emotions. So for me, the medicine is to be brave enough. And the other thing that I want to just honor is something that Carolyn Mace said, which is one of my awesome teachers. And she said, when we have really deep karmic predicaments, it's almost
Mm.
impossible for us to do it by ourselves.
Mm.
Like getting help, somatic therapy, coaching, even going to like Burning Man, you know what I mean? Doing things that are going to pop you out of your own conditioning so that you can empower yourself in different ways and be willing to be on a journey of transformation. Really important for
Yeah.
anybody who is wanting to take their wounds into wisdom. I'm doing a course now, from persecution into power, right? You want to transmute what's been given to you and alchemize it so that it's your strength, so it becomes the road that you walk, the medicine that
Yeah.
you offer. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that you brought up something so beautiful with that woman, what she said. Carolyn Mace, was that it?
Yeah, she's cool. She's a really good teacher.
Okay, so what you just said about, helping, we can't do this alone. And I think that a
Yeah.
lot of people are not self-motivated. They won't do for themselves what they will do for someone right in front of them, which is kind of interesting. It's definitely a predicament, but it's why a lot of people will hire a personal trainer because they don't want to let the personal trainer down. They don't want to go to the gym for themselves. They just want to show up because they want to, impress the personal trainer, or at least give them the chance to help them grow. And so I feel like if you are silent or in solitude or feeling unactivated, put yourself in community to get your own voice activated. Throw yourself in the fire of like the world to see just how needed you actually are. And if you are in isolation, you might think that your personal progress or growth has not taken you very far until you go back into the matrix and you're like, oh my God, I'm like heaps and leaps ahead of people. I have so much, so many trails to blaze for these people, so many truths to share. And it just takes that mirror. or that activation of being around others to realize that you are very, very much so needed. And so, yeah, definitely show up for other people. Get on FaceTimes like this with other people to share
Totally.
energy exchanges because not only do I get downloads, but you get downloads, and conversations create entire universes on their own that ripple into other people's lives. So,
And
yeah.
when you're paying for people who haven't done coaching before, because I know that coaching gets a bad rap and it seems like a scam. You're like, what am I buying? I'm buying nothing. I'm buying Zoom calls with this person. You're paying money for someone to download into you, if it's the right person, by the way. Don't
Yeah,
just like spend
exactly.
money with random people because I've seen so many people do that and they get burned and it's terrible. But
Yeah.
with the right person, I have 20 plus years of personal development work in this lifetime and lifetimes that I've just, been initiated into as a soul and all of my, and I can beam that into somebody's being in 5 minutes with them on a call. That's insane. And I watch it happen. And so you are speeding up your process exponentially by hiring experts who will help you download a level of confidence, a level of, especially if you get a teacher, any teacher who sees you and your mastery and your potential that you don't see into yourself. So I have a personal trainer and I am at the point with him now because we've been working together for 2 or 3 years that I could do stretches at my house, but when he's in the room, whether he's even looking at me directly or not, the way that I'm deeper because of his consciousness. And that's the other thing, it's the attunement of the people. So I have a certain level of mastery energetically. So people show up in front of me and they transmute their whole being trans shifts into a place where their vibrational field matches mine. And it's the same with my trainer, where like I'm standing up straight. I have abs now. I didn't have that. It's just like but it also takes consistency. I've been working out with him for 3 years, and just this year it was like, ooh, everything got tight all of a sudden. I don't know what that was, a combination of different things, but it was like, yeah, if you same with the spiritual path and meditation and focus. It's like if you empower yourself to devote yourself to this practice, and it's not a perfect system, you're going to have ups and downs and weird things happen to you, like that pain and the wailing and the ground and the roar. But if you're devoted because you know in your soul, in the voice of your own soul, you know what you serve. And if you serve a better world where infinite love and universal consciousness and the invisible thread that weaves all things together is what I call the infinite everything. If you want that to be a part of your reality, then you are humble and like prostrated to that infinitely, and there's nothing else you can do about it. I often tell people in the witch wound or the goddess, it's like if you resonate with the witch wound or you've done priestess work in other lifetimes, I mean, in this lifetime, you've done it in many lifetimes and you're just of service. You can't negotiate that. And you wish maybe you could be some cheerleader Barbie materialist, but like you can't because like you're just like, I need to help tend to people and I need to help raise other people up and I care about the collective and I feel the collective even when I'm not. And it's amazing how devoted those of us who have devotion really are. We really are, and it's non-negotiable.
Yeah. And to touch on the Barbie aspect, I mean, you can definitely be a high priestess, magician,
Barbie,
amazing Barbie.
totally.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and I
totally.
think about Nicki Minaj, because she has branded her whole thing about Nicki Minaj being a Barbie with her barbs,
Sh-
but this woman is high, high,
She's
high
not a
consciousness.
Barbie though. That woman is
But you know what I mean? She promotes Barbie.
she that is the deepest Barbie because she's a gangster. I mean she's obviously a gangster in like other forms, but she's a gangster. I mean like the way that she can put. I saw her. Have you seen her interview with Stephen Colbert?
No.
Oh, you got after this thing, go on YouTube. Everybody go on YouTube and watch Nicki Minaj, Stephen Colbert. She freestyle raps and flirts with him at the same time and floors the entire room. It is,
Wow.
oh, she's like, I'm gonna get with Steven after the show. He gonna come to work with a magical glow. And like everybody's
Aw.
like, yeah, it
Yeah.
was.
And that's just to show that like your ego can serve you. Circling back to like, yeah, be whatever you want to be that you feel would serve your highest mission.
Her personality is in service to the soul, though. That's a way that it works. That's a
Exactly.
perfect example of the hybridization of that. Is like I'm gonna be sassy and but I'm a poetess and I'm gonna
Yeah.
bring that energy and that art
Hmm.
to the world and the masses in this way, and it's really
Yeah.
beautiful.
I
Yeah.
love that. And for someone who's just beginning their spiritual path, finding this, being like, I don't even know what I serve. I don't have a very strong vision
Yeah.
for the future, right? Because I started like that when I had my awakening 6 or 7 years ago. I'm just like, well, I mean, you don't know that right now. Versus now, after walking this path, I know exactly why I'm here, which is to elevate consciousness specifically for goddesses who are repressed. Why am I like this though? Because of the state of the world. I'm sure that if I have incarnated 200 years from now, my purpose and my vision would be entirely different because it would depend on the external reality and why I chose to incarnate in that moment. In this moment, for the 100+ years of my life that I might live, I'm here for the women because of the state of patriarchy, because of what's
Yeah.
going on around us. And so, yeah, for the baby awakener, the baby witch, or someone who's just on their path, who's like, well, I don't have a vision, and is that okay? And how am I supposed to serve if I don't have everything fully mapped out yet? What do I do to serve?
I would get to know yourself. There's a quote by Ram Dass that says, the highest thing that I can do on my path is work on myself. And the
Mm-hmm.
highest thing that you can do for me is work on yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So if you, and the other thing that I might want to just do for devil's advocate is I feel like we do know even when we don't know, that there is a play or freedom of expression or a yearning. I think that sometimes people say they don't know because they're afraid to admit to themselves what they really actually do desire. Because that is a huge, oh my God, we could talk about that. People aren't in touch with their needs or their wants. In this society, we're trained out of even admitting them or having them. It's like, oh, that's too big. Oh, you want to be a singer? Oh, that's too big. Oh, nobody's going to do that. Blah, blah, blah. You can't be an art. I mean, it's just so embedded in the conditioning to avoid not only our needs and our wants, but our feelings and our emotions. We have that whole, there's a whole paradigm, right, where it's like women are afraid to like feel their emotions because they're afraid of being too much or crazy or etc.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
of course there has to be boundaries. I'm not saying women should just like rage on everybody, but really, for us at least, to be like, hey, don't don't disappear on me, that made me sad. Like, it took me 12 years to be able to voice that to somebody and be like, no, it's not cool that you come in to me and be like my best friend and then be dip out and the control paradigm in our
Yeah.
relationship. You need to be in control all the time and we can't have an actual equal relationship of reciprocity. I'm actually not okay with that. So now I can say that. I couldn't have even articulated that 5 years ago. So
Yeah.
that work on yourself to be able to be like, what are my feelings? What are my thoughts? What are my boundaries? What are my values? What do I
Mm-hmm.
stand for? What hill will I die on? What are the things as a child that have impacted me? What do I want to create change in the world? What do I wish was different? What is affecting me viscerally? If you answer any of those questions, or come to someone like me or anybody as like a coach who you admire and do one of those programs where you are, that's the cool thing about courses, is like when you do journaling prompts and you give yourself time and space away from your real life to actually like listen and like work on like, what do I want, who am I, and I do that every New Year's. Like, what is it real? And it's different versions of the same thing, but make mood boards, make collages, make like,
Yes.
find yourself in things, and then but don't over identify with those things, that you don't create a
Mm.
like a whole thing about it where it's like, I'm a this person now, because we see that we have enough of that, we don't need that.
Yeah, and identity shifts. You should be open to
Yes,
your universal blessings coming in a way that you're not like it has to come in like this, or else you'll
true
block
that.
if, I have to win the lottery. Okay, but like this person just wanted to gift you a house. So now it's the same, you know
Mm,
what I mean? Like be open to the mysteries and magic of the universe.
totally.
And yes, I love all of this so much.
I
You were
think the
talking
other thing I want
about,
to say is play.
yeah,
Let
play.
people play. Fucking nobody plays enough. Okay, go ahead.
No, because you were talking about like all like work on yourself, work on your values, work on your boundaries, standards, and I think that that is so beautiful, first of all. But something that I have had to heal within myself was this idea that my truth would hurt other people. And I have had this my whole life. It's only within the last 6 months that I've healed this because I went to a coach who I am inspired by. And I spoke to her face to face, and I was like, I just can't seem to show up as myself online because I
Mm.
feel that my truth will actually harm people. I have this overwhelming, looming sensation that my truth will kill other people. And she's like, you cannot take responsibility for how other people receive you. And just that one download, just that one sentence, I was like, you're right. Why would I ever feel that I need to take responsibility for how other people receive me? And I guess maybe it's like the Peter Parker Spider-Man quote, with great power comes great responsibility. But you know what's crazy about that is that, 2 weeks later, I was looking at my matrix chart and I saw that in a past life, my truth killed a lot of people
That's what I was
and
thinking
ruined a
as soon
lot
as
of
you said it.
people's
Yeah.
lives just living in my truth. Now, what does that mean? That I mean, I'm not going to say I was like Hitler in a past life or anything, but like imagine Hitler. Hitler had a very strong truth and he hurt and harmed a lot of people. And so it goes to like show, how can you be certain that your truth is the right way? Because we are all,
Mm.
human beings with different perceptions. And then it gets to the conversation of good and evil and the line and all of this. And I think that yeah, brings up a whole quantum episode of like right and wrong, good and evil, which we can get
That's a
into in a
huge deal.
microscopic way.
It's a
But
huge deal.
yeah, but what do you think about this idea of like your truth harming people and being certain that you are a true like prophet and not a false prophet and leading people to the slaughter, like literally.
There's nuance in that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because if we're talking about the what I see, just to like take a sharp left for a moment,
Yeah.
um, because you mentioned something so visceral, which is like
Yes.
the World War II and the Holocaust. I
Mm-hmm.
feel like there are, let's say, like good and evil, angels, demons, demonic energies. I feel like those energies that are wanting the destruction or feed off of separation consciousness
Mm.
implant themselves through the lie of white supremacy. I have
Mm.
a very strong inclination. I was a download that came to me actually with what's happening with the current administration and different things that I've tracked in the last like 5 years because I'm a big pattern tracker. Is
Yeah.
that oh, the way that this happens is and especially because of the horrific things that are happening in Gaza and
Mm.
with the Palestinians, and then everybody being so anti-Semitic online. And I have Jewish lineage, so I'm sensitive to that. So it's so something
Mm-hmm.
I've paid attention to in different ways, where I realize that anytime that we as a culture or as a mob mentality, which is also with the witches, another thing I'm sensitive to. So I'm like
Mm-hmm.
super primed for all of these things. Um, Anytime we attack one position or one group of people, we are creating separation consciousness. The far right's doing it right now with trans, right? It's like attack the trans, attack the immigrants, right? It's like
Yeah.
you're just making up enemies that we focus on because people, as a human, as a hive mind, as a tribal consciousness, if we have an enemy, it's easier to control people and funnel them into a certain way. I believe that
Yeah.
that's how separation consciousness. Um, Programs people. So I don't want any of that. So that's if we're moving towards truth, number one, our truth, we can be, like you said, does our soul lead us into things that may not actually be a good paradigm for us to follow because of
Yes.
lessons and reasons and that we don't know in the great mystery of life? Could be. So that's one part. Second part, um, our truth usually, if it's like coming from spirit and soul, doesn't harm a bunch of people unless it's like some kind of a deep lesson of initiation where it's like, oh my God, I trusted this or I trusted this person and then I was let down. But that doesn't mean that you insidiously were like, I'm going to do this and then do that. It was just a circumstantial thing. And as we know, there's suffering and that discrepancy, or what do I want to say, suffering and the dichotomy of darkness and light on this planet. And so if
Yeah.
we talk about Atlantis, it's like, did they want to lean too much on technology and blow everything up? Maybe not, right? Maybe they were, maybe they thought that they were doing good, and then it was like, oh, it all just blew up in our faces. Maybe we shouldn't do that next time. And then is there the pattern? Because I have a feeling like Elon Musk reminds me of an Atlantean, where he's just like, I still need to go to Mars and blow it up again. I need to do this again. And then there's like the loop of how trauma and the ripples of karma and the universe kind of like. So I feel like if we're really in service, and that's where humility comes in. And I feel as a soul, I'm initiated into this really humble path this lifetime because I probably was somebody who had a bunch of power in a past life and wielded it in a way where I needed to learn more about service and humility. And my initiations in this lifetime have been really scraping my ego over and over again so that I hold authentic power, absolute power, and can be an example of what that looks like in a humble way. And I
Mm,
feel like that's why I was never made an influencer when everybody else was like, oh, now I'm an influencer, or I'm a this, or I'm a that. It's just like, no, Michelle, you're going to kind of take a slower journey. But
mm,
the people who see you will really see you, and they will stand. And the other thing that I use in my work, this expression, is walk as if you have wings in this world. Your dignity is carved over time, and it's non-negotiable. So when you have allyship to the light, when you have allyship to truth, because that's what we're talking about, to justice,
yeah.
to these values, to these virtues, it resonates in a way that material things like bank account numbers, even, or follower count, it, those things don't touch the frequency that we're speaking about, which is like absolute, authentic mastery. And
Yeah.
that's a resonance that people, it's non-negotiable.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. When you talk about truth and the authentic mastery path, I think about how most people are driven by their truth and how that can cause a lot of distortions, especially how, like, the things happening in Gaza right now. A lot of people believe that they're doing the right thing based on their truth of, wiping, like, I can't even get into it, wiping an entire race clean because they believe that this is the important thing to do based on their truth, right? And so I think that to deepen the context, even, and to even get into deeper nuance too, like what you were saying about truth is about expansion, and it's not about control and contraction and enforcing your beliefs on other people and how they should live and how they should behave. But then we get into, like, well, I would definitely want to put away all the pedophiles in the world and lock them up in a cage and let them die, right? Because that's terrible to believe that their truth is about hurting and harming younger kids. And so it gets so interesting to think, like, why would I believe that I can, lock a whole group of people up based on my truth of, and but I think it comes down to, well, if you're harming another person, you deserve to just go sit down and, like, come back in
There's a
another life, or I don't know, right?
there's a distortion, I think, around the nuance of the word truth.
Yeah, I think
If
so
someone
too.
has a kink, or they're serving, let's see, a demonic force of separation, I wouldn't call that a truth. I would call that an addiction. I would
I'm
call
looking up the
that,
etymology of truth because you know
yeah, yeah,
that
yeah.
etymology is always so good.
Sure, go for it, go for it, go for it. But it's
Yeah,
not
so
it's
it
not an
comes
absolute
to,
truth because there's
yeah.
relative truth and then there's absolute truth. Absolute truths are eternal over time, and relative truths are the ones where you're talking about, where you're speaking about, like, this person's truth is that I want to molest children, which is not an absolute truth.
No, well, truth, the etymology of it is faithfulness. So you are faithful to an
Mm-hmm.
ideology, I guess. So
Mm-hmm.
that would be a truth, which just goes to show that it can be a faithfulness in the wrong direction.
100%. And everybody personally, with religions, for example, have relatives truths that Jesus is the this dude, or Jesus is this dude, or Jesus is was this dude, right? Like there's
Yeah.
so many different those are, but the absolute truth is that like life well, I believe that the absolute truth is that life goes beyond this particular incarnation. And the absolute truth to me is that we get to raise our awareness, and that Jesus is a symbol of what that looks like in a lifetime of someone who mastered the human incarnation. And you can label in a smaller way, and people argue over truth all the time.
Hmm.
But I believe so deeply in natural law, which is that everything is connected. And by if you try to steal power, like in your example of pedophilia, that would be like stealing
Exactly.
power from
Yeah,
another
exactly.
being.
Hmm.
That's not a truth. It's witchcraft in a weird way, right?
Yeah.
And the like lower dimensional magic and all of those things. And the war in Gaza is the same thing.
Stealing
And people
power.
trying to steal
Hmm.
power from each other. But if we move back and we go into an absolute truth, we're all whole, we're all connected, and we're all feeding this beautiful microcosm of the world so that we can all thrive. And that is the world that I'm trying to create, and that you are trying to
Hmm.
create, is that we recognize and that we move beyond everything we just mentioned in the last 5 minutes. Was that glamour in a way of how devastating the separation is trying to infiltrate all of us so
Hmm.
much. And the things in our generation, you and me, are on our plates as warriors of the light to hold and to bring compassion to, and to act in with advocacy, and to what is that other A word where we are um
Altruistic.
no, 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 no. Where we're like we
Advocates.
are, no, we are protesters. We're activists. We're
Activists.
activists
Okay.
against. We have to be activists against that. As
Yeah.
warriors of the light, we have to. And we have to not let that consume us, so that we can clear. Again, this goes back to clearing the
Yeah.
vessel so that we can open to the higher frequencies that we know are possible, and be
Yeah.
driven by those things and serve those things as absolute truth, as opposed to all of the other things, and make, I don't know, want to say excuses, but be like, well, that's their truth, or that's that thing. I think that we need to like go higher dimensional. I think a lot of people get mixed up in all of that, and we need to be like, no, virtue and value is the truth, and like oneness, and like that's it,
Yeah.
it's like for me with guides, I say like I rock with ascended masters only, like
I love that. No, I love that. And for anyone thinking that this is a complete side tangent, side quest to the episode, Voice of the Soul, I would really argue that because I
it
think that
is.
truth, I would argue that because I think that truth determines, your inner truth
Totally.
determines what voice you will be speaking in the world, what direction your soul has to move into. And I think that this is a permission slip to walk in the truth that you currently have, but don't be afraid to let it drastically shift if you realize that that truth is not serving you and if it's not serving humanity. And I'll give a quick example about how I truly believed that the truth of this world was for me to be on OnlyFans and selling my body, and being in that world of just receiving exchanges from men and receiving money for that. Now, 3 months after that, I quickly realized I'm not actualizing my potential. I'm not awakening higher consciousness. I'm very solidly stuck in this material realm of my body being sold versus my mind versus my gifts and my talents. And so I could see my potential had a cap. And so I drastically shifted that truth. And I was like, oh, this is not the path for me anymore. Uh, you know, for anyone else who is on that path, go for it. But for me and for my soul and my truth, that wasn't the path anymore. And so I think that if that, what would you say actually in terms of like that being a path for someone, and if that's the ultimate truth for someone to be, in sex work? What do you think about that?
I told you, I actually mentioned my girlfriend I said my
Yeah.
stripper girlfriend who has
Yeah.
moves, and she does it so well. I know, and she's also like a yoni coach priestess
Yep.
thing, and she's got her whole, so for some of us, it's totally the path. And I don't knock
Exactly.
it. I don't knock it at all. I actually am very impressed when I see a woman doing it in a high conscious way. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, it's like they're really clear. They're really clear about that is their role. The prostitute is an archetype that is like timeless. Carolyn Mace has that in her body of work as well, of like it's like a old as time woman, just like with witches. It's like, do you want to be a witch or do you want to do you want to be this or do you want to be that? So it's totally an option for all of us. It depends like everything on how we're holding it. Do you
Yeah,
know?
because what I was finding in my reality was that I was attracting a lot of deception in my reality. Like I was attracting a lot of married men. And I could see that because it was people I knew who would be paying for my OF subscription, who I knew, oh my God, he just had a kid last 6 months ago with someone. And it didn't feel good to be on the receiving end of participating in deception. And
Mm,
so for me, that felt like it wasn't honoring my truth to be participating in someone else's deception in their
mhm,
life, right? And so
mhm.
I think that that kind of showed me like I can't activate my highest potential if I'm creating more deception in the world.
Yeah, and it feels really, important for you personally as your emotional journey about knowing that, what that felt like. Of
Exactly.
like, I think that that's a very important step on your growth path of discernment
Hmm.
of what you want to cooperate with in the world.
Exactly.
And it just happened to take the form of the OnlyFans idea. Does
Yeah,
that make
I think
sense?
so.
But I think the
Definitely.
kernel of truth was like, oh, I have to be careful of what I'm putting my energy into because if I do that, then the people who are close to me and know me are going to siphon energy in this way, and that's actually not what I want to amplify. And I think that
Hmm.
that level of discernment is important for anybody's path. That's really beautiful. It just
Yeah.
happened to take that form in the way that it
Yeah.
got taught to you. Yeah,
I love that you're talking about it taking form because you need to take the wisdom
a
based
hundred
on the
percent.
situation you're in. And so, for anyone whose truth is evolving, whose voice
That.
is deepening, allow yourself to walk this path, not necessarily knowing that the first step you will take will be your golden elixir, dream ticket, lottery winning life. Like, no, sometimes you have to walk paths that give you data for where you're ultimately meant to be. Because let's just say I
Oh
end up
gosh,
being
yes.
a global pop star working as like with huge people, okay? I will now know what I don't want to participate in terms of deception, and I will have had this experience to show me that.
We learn a
So,
lot through contrast. I've learned a lot about community and human dynamics through contrast. And like I said, that path, that long road of initiation, it
mhm.
really is. And it's spiral and it's up and it's down. And you think you're learning something this way. Oh no, never mind, I go this other way. And it takes a lot of trust. And it takes a lot of humility and maturation and self-forgiveness, knowing that we're not doing anything wrong by being on our path of growth, but really being devoted to the path of growth and working on ourselves. So I think what we just got to answered like a bunch of those questions that you had asked about what do we do as a beginner, what do we do when we don't know, all of those things. It's like you live your life, you walk your path, and you walk your path with a lot of humility, a lot of self-respect, and a lot of self-forgiveness. And you recognize that you're going to be put in situations that you don't always know the outcome for, and then you learn things. Like I used to think that I got rejected from social groups because I wasn't powerful. And then I had an epiphany and I was like, it's not because I'm not powerful, it's because I am powerful.
I'm
Because I was
too
like, I'm
powerful.
right. And people, and then when one of my teachers, Sean Korn, she was like, oh no, that's totally right. She was like, and people will try to fuck you, they'll try to take it from you, they'll try to steal from you. And I was like 33 at this time having this conversation with her. I was like, all those things happened. I was like,
Yeah.
that's exactly what happened to me. And she's like, yeah. She goes, wait till you get into your 40s. You're not going to care about anything anymore. And I'm just turning into my 40s, and it's totally accurate, man. It is like you level up and you get really clear on what you're a yes to and what you're a no to. And you have to allow yourself that time. And I think because we're also trained now because of Instagram and everybody's a coach. We're also trained to like be an expert instantly and like pretend like we have things that we don't have. And we have lost like real respect of people who have gone through real initiations and what that is to go through
Mm-hmm.
life initiations, and actually exalt the people who have had those initiations and mastery, and not just base it on like follower account or bank account things or how cool you are in the whatever. But like, it's like, who actually knows what they're talking about? Let's actually put
Mm-hmm.
them, yeah, forward.
Yeah. And I think that you'll know based on, like you were saying, the person who resonates with you.
Yeah,
Unfortunately, if the person who resonates with you ends up being the scammy person, you will have learned something. But I think
exactly.
that, yeah, it depends on your personal growth and where you're at and who you need to learn from, who will show you and give you the nuggets of what didn't work and what will work next time.
Discernment is one of the best wisdom teachers that, and you only
Yeah.
get that by your lived experience. And we should be taught that in elementary school, and we're not.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how do you discern? Like, nobody, that's not a conversation that people have, and it's so important.
And it goes back to the body. Your body will know. It'll either be like, "Ooh, I want to bring," it'll bring you forward. Yes, let me do that thing. Or no, just a
A
calm,
hundred
clear
percent.
knowing.
Yeah.
We have a past question from a past guest that I want to ask you. This person asked the question for you. And the question is, what was a loving experience that you have had in your life that was transformative for you? A loving experience. It could be anything.
Oh, this is like really personal and wonderful. So I met a man who has three children. So he's not my partner in this lifetime, but I met him through a plant medicine ceremony almost 10 years ago. And I I was celibate for 5 years before I met this guy. And I was calling in like a Shiva consciousness of what divine tantric love was, because I felt like I knew it in my bones. But I was going to all these festivals and hanging out with these guys who are cool and pretty and some of my like best friends, but like not trustable in like a primal deep sense. And this person that I met was like 15 years old, was older than me again, had three children. So it was like a different frequency of a man, like very placid and very even and very different. And I never felt so respected in my life, and I have a father who is abusive and demeaning emotionally and all these things. And so to feel what it was to be honored by the masculine in reverence, and to be bowed to, and to be seen. And I have another friend who died. His name is Phoenix. He's one of my guides now. And he saw me fully. And because I have so much multidimensional power and frequencies and so much polarizing responses in my normal community, people will either see that I have a lot of power and then otherize me or ignore me, or project onto me, or want something from me, want my sexuality. So I've had all of those things. So when someone sees like the shamanic, but also dorky girl who grew up in Fort Lauderdale and loves both sides of me, there's a peace like that that I receive that's no, like nothing else on the planet, especially if it comes from a man, because it's like, and it doesn't have to, Phoenix and I didn't have a like a love affair. It was just like a brother sister of the light relationship. He was gay actually, and he still is. When he comes as a spirit, he flies around all fat. It's like he's over the
Oh,
top.
fabulous.
He's hysterical. He's a
That's
fabulous.
hilarious.
He's still fabulous on the other side. He's like, "Ta-da, I'm here," and I'm like, "Oh my
That's so
god!"
cute.
Like a bird will chirp, and it's like, "Baka baka," and I'm just like, "Oh my god, seriously." Hi, Phoenix.
That's so cute.
And so it's so cute and beautiful. And so, but just that like universal consciousness of love, and the same with the soulmate that I met. It's the timeless love that's eternal. That reminds me so much of home, whatever star planet that I come from. It's just like it's beyond the beyond. And so that's my favorite
Yeah.
thing. Yeah, thanks for
Thank
the
you for sharing that.
question.
No, definitely. I think that we all crave to be seen as we truly are. So that's beautiful. How can people stay in touch with you if they want to work with you?
Yeah. Okay. So my website is my name, which is Michelle Coutinho. So I'll spell that MicheLeCoutinho .com. You can find me online everywhere at Michelle Infinity, because my last name is hard to pronounce. It's Coutinho. And I'm a vocal empowerment coach and also a spiritual mentor. So I work with people ideally in 3 months stints, and it's like an upgrade for your life. There's an application form right on my website on the top where it says apply to work with me one on one. You fill that out. If you want to go to bit.ly soul mentorship /soul mentorship, you can just fill out that paper. And it's just a few questions, and it's like asking you, like, where are you on your path now? What's in your way? What's stopping you? And what do you want in the future? That gives me a template for us. I hear one of my really beautiful gifts is that you can tell me a story and I'll hear something underneath. You guys actually saw me do it today when she was talking about the ferocity. And I was like, what is that? Like, let's go deeper into
Yeah.
that. And then we want to weave that into all these things that we don't even know are here yet. I feel like I pick people's scamscaras and astral identities and past lives and all these things out of their like big multidimensional web and then bring it down for them to integrate and then work
Mhm.
with and build a new relationship with. And then that empowers them in a huge way forward on their spiritual path. So if you want to do that, if you want to work with me, you should reach out to me and just go to my website, hit the application form. I do free introduction calls because I've been doing this for years now, and it's very clear the archetype of the souls that I work with, and we will feel it right away. It's like I know if you're somebody I'm just meeting, okay, then we're just supposed to have this conversation, or if it's like, oh, okay, we have an assignment and we're going to do a journey together. And then I don't know exactly when this is going to come out. I'm going to be doing a witch wound course at the end of November into December, and it's called From Persecution into Power. And it's going to be a 4 week journey, or that's what I'm playing with right now. We're going through the gates of Inanna, going into the underworld, shedding
Mm.
skins. Then I do a shamanic soul song activation. Then we're going to do some live coaching and Q&A and do some community building. And then we're going to do celebration and soul song at the end of that. And so it's like literally getting rid and shedding these persecutions of that past lives and then finding our full embodiment. And so whether it's one-on-one or in groups. And then next year, for the whoever's hearing this, whenever they're hearing it, I'll be doing my surrender program again, which is a 6-month mentorship where I go through the wheel of the year and the masculine and feminine archetypes of mother, maiden, crone, stag, father, sage. And
Ooh.
I did it. I didn't do it last year. I didn't do it for the last 2 years, but I did it one year before and I did it this past year. It is such a good program, and the amount of cracking of the shell of embodiment that I saw in the women who took it this year was it like astounded me, and I was like, oh my God, this has to be my signature thing because it's too juicy and it's so multidimensional and so multifaceted, and like the birth from I do it from the equinox to the equinox, so the equinox in March to
Mm.
the equinox in September, and we trace the wheel of the year, and it's just gangster. It's just
Beautiful.
wonderful the way that I did it. I'm so excited. I
Wow. Thank you for sharing. Obviously, I'm going to put all of Michelle's notes in the show notes below, all of her
Sure.
links and things like this. Do you have a question that you would like to ask the next podcast guest?
Oh, okay, sure. Let's see. The first thing that popped into my head was what makes you dance?
Ooh. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for
Yeah.
that. All right. Thank you so much, Michelle, for doing this and sharing your beautiful energy and time and gifts with the world. We are so grateful to receive you.
Deep,
So,
deep gratitude. Thank you. Bye.
thank you. Okay. See you next week for the next episode of Goddess State. Bye.